Before we dive into the deepest currents of One Piece, we must speak of something most people fear to admit. There is more history missing than history remembered, and that absence is louder than any war drum. Legends whisper that our world, the world of One Piece, is not merely vast in geography, but fractured in time. Fragments. Pieces of truth deliberately severed and buried beneath propaganda, censorship, and silence. This silence has a name: the Void Century. Imagine an entire century swallowed whole, not forgotten, removed, scrubbed with surgical precision by an invisible hand. A government that fears knowledge does not fear the past, it fears comparison. When truth is erased, people do not become ignorant, they become vulnerable, and vulnerability is the perfect breeding ground for tyranny. In this world, maps lie, books lie, even schools are instruments of narrative control. But stone does not lie. Stone remembers. That is why the Poneglyphs exist, the silent librarians of a murdered era. Let us peel back the first layer. The Void Century is not merely lost, it is forbidden. And anything forbidden by the world government is, by definition, dangerous. Not dangerous because it is violent, but dangerous because it is true. During that century, civilizations flourished with technology so advanced that even Vegapunk, the greatest mind alive, calls his work imitations. The greatest scientist in the world admits inferiority to ghosts. Those ancient cities were powered by clean energy, automated weapons, and bioorganic engineering. What happened to them? They lost to someone, not because they were weak, but because they were outnumbered. Power in this world is not held by those who innovate, but by those who fear innovation. And so, when the world was unified, the victors erased their rivals' legacy, as all conquerors do. In every era, the winners write history, but only in One Piece did the winners delete it. This is the foundation of our world building, a paradise built on bones. You cannot understand One Piece if you do not understand the lie. Have you ever noticed that the world government is not merely a government? It is a religion. Flags, symbols, dogma, inquisitions, execution of scholars. These are the marks of faith, not politics. The world order we see is not stable. It is curated. Pirates are not criminals. They are narrative tools. The Yonko are not enemies. They are counterweights. The Marines are not peacekeepers. They are curators of perception. Everything is a theater with one goal: to prevent the world from remembering. But truth echoes. The sun symbol, the drums of liberation, the winged tribes, the moon glyphs, the smile. These fragments do not match the world we see today. They match a world before the purge. A world where joy was not merely an emotion, but a weapon. The ancient enemy of tyranny is not rage, but laughter. That is why Laugh Tale exists. That is why Joyboy apologized. That is why the final treasure is not gold. It is perspective. Perspective changes societies. And that is why the government fears it. To preserve truth, the ancient scholars developed unbreakable stone, not to resist explosions, not to resist time, but to resist censorship. They knew books burn, speakers die, memories fade, but stone remains. Each poneglyph is not a message, it is defiance. The scholars did not write history, they seeded rebellion. The world of One Piece is cyclical. Technology rises, tyranny reacts, history is culled. Survivors smile anyway. The will of D is not bloodline, it is inheritance of perspective. When D appears, systems tremble, kings panic, prophets whisper. D is not a name, it is an elemental archetype. Those who bring the dawn, because dawn is not day. Dawn is the defeat of night. Listener, We have only begun peeling the ancient tapestry, and already a pattern emerges. The void century did not vanish. It was taken. The ancient weapons are not weapons. They are keys. The will of D is not destiny. It is permission. Permission to laugh when told to kneel. Permission to choose chaos in the face of order. Permission to rewrite the world. If the void century represents the wound, then the ancient weapons represent the scar tissue trying to heal the world. Most people misunderstand them. They imagine war machines, cannons, unstoppable instruments of devastation. But technology that survived 100 years of erasure would not be crude. The ancient weapons are not designed to destroy the world. They are designed to reset it. Each weapon corresponds to a cosmic principle. Pluton, the embodiment of land and civilization, capable of reshaping terrain and cities. Poseidon, the embodiment of the sea and life cycles, capable of communicating with the very guardians of the ocean. And Uranus, the embodiment of the sky and governance, rumored to control atmosphere, climate, and possibly even memory. Together they form a triad: land, sea, sky. This is not war technology. This is world architecture. The mistake the world makes is assuming that power was meant to be held by a single person. In truth, ancient weapons appear to have required balance. Pluton is useless without Poseidon, and Uranus is meaningless without the context of the other two. They are keys to unlocking the original structure of civilization, a trinity of equilibrium. When one is missing, the world destabilizes. This imbalance is visible today. Islands are isolated, the ocean is hostile, weather is chaotic, climates clash, storms appear from nowhere. All evidence points to a world whose environmental systems were once regulated by this tri-weapon network. When the ancient kingdom fell, the world was severed from its control panel. Geologically, biologically, culturally, everything became fragmented. The world government maintains order not because it is efficient, but because the planet itself has been malfunctioning for centuries. The mere existence of these weapons challenges the authority of the rulers, not because they can destroy them, but because they can reveal the previous world order. If someone activates even one of these artifacts, people will begin to ask questions. Who built them? Why do they respond to certain bloodlines? Why were they targeted during the purge? The answers to these questions point to a civilization that was not just advanced but enlightened. It is no coincidence that the people capable of awakening these weapons are often those who desire freedom, not dominion. Shirahoshi, for example, is compassionate to a fault. She does not seek to command the Sea Kings. She listens to them. This is the crucial difference between tyrants and liberators. Ancient weapons do not obey orders. They respond to intention. Malicious users find that power becomes uncontrollable. The ocean swallows villains. The sky rejects oppression. The land resists tyranny. The world itself appears coded against those who misuse it. So why, after all this time, has no one publicly attempted to assemble the trio? The answer is simple: fear. The world government is terrified, not that someone will use the ancient weapons, but that someone will unlock the memory of harmony. When people remember that the world once functioned differently, regimes crumble. Oppression relies on exhaustion, on resignation, on normalized despair. A society that sees an alternative will chase it. This leads us to another overlooked detail. Each ancient weapon is geographically positioned near kingdoms with deeply rooted cultural legacies. Alabasta carries messages of hidden history. Fishman Island bridges the concepts of discrimination and migration. The third Uranus remains ambiguous, possibly tied to holy sites or celestial observation. It is reasonable to assume that each location once formed a vertex in a global network. When these vertices connect, information flows. Information is more dangerous than fire. The world government tries desperately to suppress it. They control newspapers, regulate marine education, censor archaeology, execute scholars, and fabricate historical labels. Pirates are called criminals. Rebels are called terrorists. But the moment someone speaks the truth, labels lose their meaning, and a system built on labels collapses. This brings us to the Great War prophecy. Nearly every major figure warns of it. Whitebeard, Roger, Odin, Mihawk, Shanks, even Doflamingo. But wars are not started by weapons. Wars are started by revelations. When a critical mass of people learns the truth, civilization realigns. The Void Century contains that truth. Someone, someday, will unseal it, and when they do, the world will not fall into chaos. It will fall into clarity. The Great War, then, is not a battle between nations. It is a battle between narratives. One side fights to preserve memory. The other fights to preserve silence. History itself is the battlefield, and each individual is a soldier whether they realize it or not. Many believe the government fears destruction. They do not. They fear balance. They fear a world where ancient weapons no longer need to be weapons, where seas are calm, skies are clean, and islands no longer drift like lost puzzle pieces. The government relies on chaos to justify its existence. A peaceful world would expose its irrelevance. The upcoming dawn is not about a throne collapsing. It is about equilibrium returning. When the ancient weapons align, environmental stability will return. The Grand Line's mutations will fade. Islands will migrate to their intended climates. Animal life will realign. Disease patterns will stabilize. Medicine will improve. Trade routes will flourish. And most importantly, literacy will spread. A world without suffering questions authority. In short, the ancient weapons are not instruments of war. They are instruments of restoration. The world government does not fear destruction. It fears repair, because when the world heals, the people remember. If the ancient weapons represent the architecture of the original world, then the world government represents the architecture of the lie. Their greatest accomplishment is not military conquest, but historical erasure. Most people assume that the government formed out of necessity after a devastating conflict. But this is only partially true. The 20 kingdoms that formed the world government did not unite for protection. They united for secrecy. They destroyed a civilization not because it threatened them physically, but because it threatened their relevance. The true horror lies not in what was lost, but in what was replaced. The government introduced systems that deliberately fragment cultures. Different currencies ensure unequal trade. Varied climates ensure territorial isolation. Inconsistent access to medicine ensures dependency. Every island becomes psychologically self-contained. When cultures cannot compare their conditions, they cannot identify oppression. Propaganda thrives in isolation. The nobles, too, serve a symbolic purpose. The celestial dragons are intentionally grotesque, intentionally decadent. They are the horror story told to the masses, a spectacle of fear. But it is their existence, not their power, that maintains obedience. The moment the world realizes that celestial dragons are not divine, but fragile, the illusion collapses. Tyranny depends on the belief that the oppressor cannot be defeated. The government also controls language. Consider the word pirate. Historically, a pirate was simply a free sailor outside government control. In One Piece, however, the term has been culturally contaminated. Children are raised to fear pirates. Citizens cheer when pirates are executed. The moral meaning of piracy has been inverted. Freedom becomes criminal. Conformity becomes heroic. Even the Marines, who should protect citizens, serve a higher narrative purpose: to maintain the illusion that the government brings order to a chaotic world. But this world is only chaotic because the government deliberately sabotages nature. This manipulation extends into science. Vegapunk is not celebrated by the government, he is tolerated. The moment his curiosity threatens narrative control, he is silenced. Scientists are permitted only to advance the government's agenda. Anything else is terrorism. Knowledge is illegal. Curiosity has become a crime. This is why archaeologists are hunted. Archaeology is not a threat to the present. It is a threat to the future. If people understand that the world was once stable, peaceful, interconnected, and technologically superior, they will demand reform. Reform leads to decentralization. Decentralization leads to sovereignty. Sovereignty leads to the collapse of global monarchy. The government is not afraid of pirates. It is afraid of scholars. The most crucial insight in world building is that the government does not fight battles. It fights information. Its ultimate weapon is not soldiers or admirals. It is censorship. If someone shouts the truth in a desert, the government does not need to silence them. It needs only to ensure that no one hears the echo. The red line itself may be part of the propaganda. That colossal wall divides the seas unnaturally, preventing global migration. People assume the world is designed this way, but geological patterns do not support it. The red line appears artificially reinforced, possibly maintained by technology from the lost era. A single barrier prevents cultural exchange among billions. Cultural exchange breeds empathy. Empathy breeds revolution. The calm belt reinforces this isolation. Sea kings patrol it not as predators, but as regulators of migration. Fishman Island serves as the only viable route because fishmen embody the original philosophy of aquatic diplomacy. Their persecution is not racism, it is strategic. If fishmen were culturally integrated worldwide, underwater travel would democratize. Suddenly, the government would no longer control transportation. You cannot control a population that can escape through the ocean. Even the weather is political. The Grand Line's chaotic climate is likely a result of malfunctioning planetary regulation. When the ancient kingdom fell, nobody remained to maintain energy routing towers, wind channels, or marine thermal regulators. Islands began drifting into unnatural climates, leading to bizarre flora and fauna. People assume the world is mysterious. In reality, the world is broken. In this broken world, myths become truths. Children are told stories of giants, winged people, and moon civilizations, not to educate them, but to dismiss them as fantasy. If people realize these myths were once part of a unified cosmology, the government's illusion would fracture. All of these pieces form a pattern. Fragmentation is not a side effect. It is a feature. The world of One Piece feels disjointed because it was designed to be disjointed. Isolation is the foundation of control. When cultures are separated, identity weakens. When identity weakens, compliance strengthens. When compliance strengthens, rebellion becomes improbable. The Void Century was not a war against people, it was a war against memory. The ancient kingdom's greatest crime was not technology, power, or ambition. Their greatest crime was unity. They connected cultures across oceans. They shared knowledge freely. They sought equality of opportunity among people of all races. This is the ideology the government fears most. Equality is not dangerous because it empowers the weak. It is dangerous because it reveals the strong to be fragile. Understanding this world requires understanding that the surface narrative is camouflage. Pirates are scapegoats. Marines are librarians of fiction. The Yonko maintain balance by limiting territory disputes. The Shichibukai program turns independent threats into regulated assets. Even the Revolutionary Army does not seek immediate victory. They seek ideological contagion. Every faction, every island, every oddity exists to maintain the illusion that the world is naturally chaotic. But chaos is not natural. Chaos is manufactured. The world was once whole. It can be whole again. That possibility terrifies the government, not because they would lose power, but because they would lose legitimacy. History is not written by the victors. In One Piece, history is deleted by them. And deletion, like censorship, is temporary. Truth is patient. To understand the fragility of the current world, we must examine the most misunderstood institution of all, the Poneglyphs. They are often treated as mere historical records. But if that were true, their creators would simply have written books. The truth is far more sophisticated. Poneglyphs are not documents. They are containers for perspective. They preserve context, metaphors, and philosophical frameworks that would otherwise dissolve over time. Each tablet encodes a worldview. This is why they are scattered across islands that reflect thematic contradictions. Alabasta wrestles with loyalty and succession. Skypie wrestles with faith and arrogance. Fishman Island wrestles with prejudice and migration. Each location is a metaphorical classroom. The world is not only broken geographically, it is broken morally. The Poneglyphs teach lessons. Those who read them are not simply informed, they are transformed. Robin did not become dangerous because she learned facts. She became dangerous because she learned how to think outside the government's architecture of belief. Once a mind expands beyond lies, it cannot shrink back. This is why the government does not assassinate every archaeologist on contact. They study them first. They analyze what they know. They dissect their methodology. They attempt to trace intellectual contagion. It is not enough to kill the speaker. They must sterilize the idea. Conversely, the ancient kingdom embedded redundancy into their system. Several poneglyphs repeat data. Some contain coordinates. Others contain warnings. The road poneglyphs are not navigation tools. They are psychological filters. Only those capable of deciphering layered meaning can assemble them. Laughtail is not just a location. It is an intellectual threshold. Those who reach it have already demonstrated the cognitive maturity required to understand its message. This is why brute force cannot reach the final island. Strength alone cannot open philosophical doors. There is another invisible structure: guilt. Joyboy's apology to Poseidon is the most crucial emotional artifact in the story. It reveals that the ancient world was not perfect. Even the enlightened fail. That failure echoes across centuries. The apology is shame carved into stone, but shame is powerful fuel. Entire eras have been built on the desire to correct ancestral mistakes. The ancient kingdom passed its guilt forward intentionally. It is not only history that was inherited, but responsibility. While scholars search for data, the government searches for symbolism. They censor not only facts but emotions. Hope is more dangerous than information. Hope spreads like wildfire. You do not need armies when you have hope. Conversely, despair immobilizes societies. The government ensures that people see just enough cruelty to feel powerless and just enough order to feel dependent. This is the emotional calculus of tyranny. Now we turn to the design of the world itself. Consider the Grand Line. It bends navigation, scrambles climate, distorts magnetic fields, and creates unpredictable currents. In a stable world, these anomalies would not exist. Their existence implies technological collapse. Some theorists propose atmospheric regulators once existed. balancing climate zones. Without them, heat pockets form. Ocean flows reverse. Species migrate erratically. The bizarre nature of the Grand Line is not mystical, it is mechanical dysfunction. Even species diversity indicates unnatural fragmentation. Giants, fishmen, lunarians, minks, tontata, and scypians do not evolve independently within a few thousand years. Their existence suggests either genetic engineering or interstellar immigration. Moon glyphs found in Skypea support extraterrestrial migration. If ancient humans arrived from the moon, then the entire concept of nations is absurd. Everyone is an immigrant. No one owns anything. The government cannot allow this narrative to spread. Unity dissolves hierarchy. The greatest conceptual threat is the idea that humanity was once unified under a solar empire. Sun symbolism appears in Shandian murals, Fishman prophecy, the Nika mythology, the Kazuki crest, and the drums of liberation. The sun represents transparency, accountability, and illumination. Conversely, Emu and the government represent darkness, concealment, and censorship. The ideological war predates the physical one. This is not simply day versus night. This is truth versus narrative. This symbolism extends into how devil fruits operate. Their power manifests only when someone makes a choice. They respond to will and imagination. They are not weapons. They are metaphors for identity. Every user becomes a different piece of what humanity once aspired to be. Gum stretches possibility. Flames express passion. Gravity manipulates consequence. Electricity channels communication. These are abilities that define civilizations. The cursed side effects of devil fruits reveal philosophical tension. The world punishes ambition. Those who dare reshape themselves lose the ability to swim. They lose their connection to the sea, the metaphorical cradle of life. Ambition divorces them from origin. Freedom carries cost. The sea itself enforces law. Sea kings intervene when unnatural power accumulates. They protect the balance of migration. They respond to Poseidon not as subjects, but as partners. Biological governance replaces political governance. These patterns suggest that nature is coded. Someone or something programmed this world. If the world is code, then the Void Century was a system update interrupted midway. The ancient kingdom attempted to reprogram reality toward unity. The 20 kingdoms performed a forced shutdown. The result is half a world, half a climate system, half a migration network, half a memory. The Poneglyphs are the restore point. This brings us to the greatest tragedy. People think One Piece is about treasure, pirates, dreams, or adventure. It is not. One Piece is about systemic repair. It is about reclaiming the other half of history. When the world remembers, it will heal. The government is not guarding a secret, it is guarding a wound. There is one final structure we must examine before we leave the foundations of this world. Everything we have discussed so far points toward a single, uncomfortable truth. The current era is not the default state of reality. It is a fallback mode, a degraded version of the original operating system. The world we see today is the emergency protocol activated after the ancient kingdom was erased. Consider the Grand Line once more. Its chaotic weather patterns, unpredictable magnetic fields, reversed currents, and sudden climate shifts are not natural phenomena. They are the symptoms of a planet whose georegulation is broken. The calm belt behaves like a firewall. Sea kings patrol it like automated security systems. Fishman Island acts as a diplomatic checkpoint. The red line is a physical barrier separating databases. The New World is a corrupted sector where code conflicts produce anomalies. If the world were functioning properly, these regions would be navigable without specialized equipment, luck, or inherited knowledge. The difficulty of sailing is evidence of collapse. When a system is unstable, its users normalize glitches. People believe the Grand Line is simply mysterious, but mystery is not a property, it is an effect. The world is not whimsical, it is malfunctioning. This malfunction forces humanity into isolation, creating the illusion that global unity is impossible. If every island believes its struggle is unique, they will never organize. The government does not need to suppress rebellion. It simply needs to keep islands ignorant of each other's suffering. The result is cultural stagnation. Most islands have similar political problems, economic inequalities, caste systems, and discriminatory frameworks. But because these issues appear isolated, no global reform emerges. The structure of the world forces people to believe that injustice is local rather than structural. This is the brilliance of the Void Century Purge. It removed not only historical data, but comparative context. Without context, truth becomes invisible. This is why the Revolutionary Army focuses not on military conquest, but on communication. Dragon understands that if people share experiences, the illusion crumbles. When citizens hear that injustice is universal, they begin to question its origin. Revolution begins not with guns, but with vocabulary. Once people speak the same conceptual language, they cannot be divided. Now consider the Poneglyphs again. Their positioning is strategic. They are located in regions where cultural trauma matches ancient lessons. Alabasta teaches responsibility over inheritance. Skypiea teaches humility over divine authority. Zu teaches tradition over surveillance. Wano teaches sacrifice over complacency. Each poneglyph is paired with a human flaw. Each location offers corrective philosophy. These tablets are not historical logs. They are tutorials for leadership. This leads us to the greatest unspoken theme in One Piece. Evolution is ideological. The strongest characters are not the ones with the strongest bodies, but the strongest convictions. Luffy does not grow by learning new techniques. He grows by expanding his worldview. Haki is not power, it is awareness. Observation, Haki evolves through empathy. Armament, Haki evolves through resolve. Conquerors, Haki evolves through identity. Power is not physical, it is philosophical. The ancient kingdom seems to have understood this. Their technology does not focus on destruction. It focuses on connectivity, automata, energy routing, biological communication, environmental stabilization, social mobility. These are not weapons, they are solutions. The government inverted the meaning of these tools. They declared them threats to justify their removal. The greatest inversion of all was the narrative that the ancient kingdom was dangerous. In truth, it was dangerous only to those who benefited from inequality. Consider also the linguistic patterns. The Kozuki clan, lunar imagery, smile motifs, soul-based iconography. These are not random. They are remnants of a unified semiotic system. A world once coded with solar symbolism would emphasize enlightenment, transparency, and joy. The government's iconography, by contrast, emphasizes geometric rigidity, uniformity, and artificial order. Their flag is not a symbol of peace, it is a map of containment. We must speak of Laugh-Tale. Its name is often misunderstood as whimsical, but laughter in One Piece is not amusement. It is resistance. Freedom begins when fear ends. Fear ends when the absurdity of tyranny is exposed. Laugh-Tale is the culmination of perspective. It is the moment someone sees the hidden architecture of oppression and finds it ridiculous. Laughter is the collapse of fear. The will of D embodies this. Those who carry the initial are agents of disruption. They do not seek thrones. They seek imbalance because imbalance reveals corruption. Their presence alone destabilizes political systems. They are anomalies in a rigid equation. That equation attempts to eliminate them. But like chaos theory, a tiny deviation can unravel an entire structure. The will of D spreads through story, not blood. It is inherited by belief. Finally, we address why only a select few can reach the end of the world. It is not strength, it is curiosity. Those who stop asking questions are trapped by the illusion. Those who accept mystery as normal are defeated. The journey to Laugh Tale is not physical, it is conceptual. It demands rebellion against the architecture of ignorance. When the truth is revealed, the world will not change immediately. People do not change because information appears. They change because perspective shifts. The dawn is not sunrise, it is the moment people collectively realize they were living in twilight. The government fears this moment, not because it will die, but because it will become irrelevant. Tyranny cannot survive transparency. Once the sun rises, shadows vanish. The world is ready to wake up. The void century is not a gap in time, it is a blindfold. And blindfolds are meant to be removed. Among the countless mysteries of One Piece, none is more misunderstood than the identity of Joyboy. Most fans imagine him as a singular hero, a historical figure who lived and died 1,000 years ago. But this interpretation is too narrow. Joyboy is not merely a name. Joyboy is a mantle, an archetype, a recurring position in a world that depends on cyclical restoration. Throughout history, civilizations that reach ideological maturity often appoint symbolic guardians. In the world of One Piece, Joyboy represents the custodian of dawn, the individual tasked with finishing the story that began during the Void Century. Joyboy's apology, carved into stone, reveals not weakness but responsibility. He failed to fulfill a promise to Poseidon, and that failure had planetary consequences. Ancient prophecy suggests that the world has been waiting not for a warrior, but for someone capable of carrying a promise across generations. Joyboy symbolizes continuity. His return is not reincarnation. It is the reappearance of an ideal in physical form. Luffy does not become Joyboy because a fruit chooses him. He becomes Joyboy because his worldview aligns with ancient requirements. Joy as rebellion, freedom as morality, laughter as weapon. This explains why the world government reacts so violently to even the suggestion of Joyboy's return. They are not afraid of an individual. They are afraid of context. If Joyboy returns, then the world must acknowledge that the current order replaced something better. And once that acknowledgement spreads, legitimacy crumbles. Joyboy represents not just hope, but evidence. Turning now to Emu. To understand Emu's identity, we must first understand what the world government fears. They do not fear pirates, weapons, or rebellion. They fear memory. Emu sits upon a throne of secrecy, not because they control power, but because they control perspective. Their existence is the punchline to a cosmic irony, a ruler with no face, a sovereign whose image does not appear in public record. Kings across the seas kneel before someone nameless. This anonymity is design. A faceless ruler cannot be targeted by narrative. They cannot be dethroned if their identity is never acknowledged. Many theorize that Emu is immortal, but immortality in One Piece is not biological, it is contextual. Emu's immortality may arise from constant information suppression. If nobody knows who you are, then you cannot die symbolically. Legends of kings and queens fade. Legends of shadows persist. Emu's power comes from negative space, the gaps in the story where civilization refuses to look. Characters without defined identity cannot be assassinated by history. The Gorosei then function as intermediaries. They are not merely old men, they are custodians of a worldview built on containment. Each of them represents a philosophical domain: war, diplomacy, science, agriculture, environment. Their purpose is not governance, it is maintenance of stagnation. Their greatest accomplishment is convincing the world that progress is dangerous. Their immortality may not be literal, it may be generational. Titles pass from master to apprentice, roles absorbed, not inherited. When one Gorosei dies, another is elevated, continuing the archetype. This is why their visual design appears timeless. They are less individuals and more avatars of global inertia. Removing them would not change the system would replace them. The architecture of authority is more durable than the bricks that compose it. This explains their obsession with devil fruits. Fruits represent potential, wild cards in a rigid game. People who eat them challenge the natural order by manifesting abilities that break physical laws. The government labels them unnatural, but unnatural to whom? Devil fruits represent human imagination weaponized. They are manifestations of desires that once fueled ancient society. The reason only one user can wield each fruit at a time is to prevent conceptual redundancy. The world regulates power by limiting imagination. The clearest evidence of this lies in the fact that Zoan fruits can awaken. When awakened, the user's identity fuses with archetypal instinct. These instincts are remnants of ancient deities. Mythical Zoans represent echoes of forgotten gods. Their power validates ancient cosmology. If these beings existed in the past, then the government's historical narrative collapses. This is why Zoan awakenings are suppressed. They are not dangerous physically, they are dangerous epistemologically. Conversely, Paramecia represent conceptual augmentation. They change the rules of interaction. They blur boundaries between matter, emotion, and perception. Logias represent systemic override. They allow users to embody components of the natural world. Their bodies become code. When awakened, they can rewrite environmental parameters, altering climate and terrain. This is not magic. It is access to portions of the world's operating system. The existence of devil fruits proves a truth the government cannot admit. The world was engineered. Life was coded. Evolution was assisted. Technology was integrated into biology. This is why ancient automata resemble devil fruit logic. They respond to will, not command. The world reacts to intent. Hockey emerges from identity. Everything points to a civilization that valued the self as an instrument of cosmic influence. This brings us to a crucial character, the archaeologist Nico Robin. She is not hunted because she can read stone. She is hunted because she can contextualize. Once context emerges, propaganda dissolves. Robin embodies the danger of perspective. She is visual literacy. Her existence threatens ignorance, the government's most precious resource. Then we have Dragon. His revolution is not war, it is narrative disruption. He spreads vocabulary, not violence. A society that shares language cannot be controlled by fear. Dragon understands that ideas spread faster than bullets. His greatest weapon is not an army, it is literacy. Finally, consider Shanks. He is a stabilizer, a counterweight. He prevents premature escalation. His role is to moderate chaos until the right variables align. He intervenes not to preserve peace, but to prepare the world for the moment when history can be revealed without collapse. Shanks is not neutral, he is timing incarnate. Together, these characters represent philosophical archetypes. Joyboy is promise. Emu is silence. The Gorosei are stagnation. Robin is revelation. Dragon is contagion. Shanks is tempo. Luffy stands at the convergence of these forces, not because he is destined, but because destiny gravitates toward laughter. In a world built on fear, laughter is liberation. The story of One Piece is not about the strongest, it is about the freest. To understand the true stakes surrounding Joy Boy's return, we must examine the mythology surrounding the D. Those who bear this initial do not share a bloodline, they share a worldview. Their common trait is not ancestry, but defiance. They refuse to treat the world as it is. They treat the world as it should be. Their laughter in the face of death is not bravado. It is philosophical protest. Even when cornered, they smile. This smile is not arrogance. It is refusal to surrender narrative control. The will of D appears whenever the world becomes too rigid. It is the cosmic counterweight to stagnation. When civilizations stratify and knowledge ossifies, the D emerges to disrupt equilibrium. This is why they are feared by the world government. The D does not overthrow systems by brute force. They dissolve systems from within by revealing their absurdity. Tyranny collapses when people laugh at it. This brings us to Blackbeard. At first glance, he appears to contradict everything described. He is greedy, selfish, and power-obsessed. But the will of D does not guarantee righteousness. It guarantees disruption. Some Ds bring dawn, others bring eclipse. Blackbeard represents imbalance. He is the shadow of possibility. His darkness is not metaphorical, it is conceptual. His ability to hold multiple devil fruits may indicate a biological anomaly rooted in ancient lineage experimentation. If the world's operating system recognizes his body as multiple vessels, it may treat him as a forked identity. He is the glitch in the code. Blackbeard's existence implies that the world's structure has exceptions. Exceptions reveal design. Design reveals designer. The world government fears this implication more than it fears pirates. Blackbeard is the living proof that ancient genetic programming persists. His body interrupts rules. Rules exist only because someone wrote them. This leads to the unavoidable conclusion that devil fruits reflect ancient ideologies. We turn now to the Gorosei. Their transformations reveal forms associated not with yokai or animals alone, but with primordial archetypes. Their monstrous silhouettes suggest entities that predate recorded species. If these forms mirror mythological guardians, then their zoans are not zoans at all, but genealogical signatures of ancient beings who once governed humanity. Their longevity, then, may not be biological. It may be contractual. Each new generation inherits a mantle that binds them to these forms. This would explain their zeal for secrecy. They are custodians of a pact, not rulers. Their worst fear is not rebellion, it is audit. If the world discovers the origins of their authority, the contract dissolves. Authority built on belief collapses when belief is scrutinized. This is why they attempt to erase symbols that predate them. Sun emblems, drumming patterns, dance rituals, ancient scripts, all refer to cultures where joy was ritualized as governance. In a solar society, transparency was divine. In a nocturnal society, secrecy becomes law. That contrast reflects deeply in Imu. Imu sits alone in the highest garden of the world, surrounded by butterflies and lilies. Butterflies represent metamorphosis. Lilies represent funerary symbolism. Imu is suspended between transformation and death. Their throne is empty, not because no one sits upon it, but because no one is allowed to see who sits there. A throne without occupant is a throne without accountability. This is the perfect symbol of tyranny. Rule without narrative exposure. Lastly, we arrive at the five elders' relationship to time. Their dialogue reveals familiarity with events centuries apart. This may indicate either extended lifespan or historical continuity through hierarchical replacement. Their apparent immortality may come from bureaucratic anonymity. Bureaucratic immortality is the most insidious type. You cannot kill an office by killing an officer. The paper survives the hand that signs it. Turning now to the admiral system, we find another layer of structure. Admirals are chosen not for morality, but for alignment with the ideological spectrum. Aokaji represents disillusioned justice. Ikainu represents authoritarian justice. Kizaru represents apathetic justice. Fujitora represents compassionate justice. Each embodies a philosophical experiment. The government is not interested in consistency, it is interested in equilibrium. By placing ideological extremes in proximity, they prevent any single concept of justice from dominating. They manufacture dissent to prevent unity. The seven warlords serve a similar function. They are legalized anomalies. Rogue elements sanctioned to maintain balance through unpredictability. Their existence creates fear among pirates and resentment among civilians. This resentment then flows toward the revolutionary army. Blame is fragmented. Anger is diverted. No single target can be universally condemned. Again, the architecture of fragmentation emerges. Against this backdrop stands Luffy. His simplicity is deceptive. He does not seek justice. He seeks freedom. Freedom breaks structure. Structure breaks narrative. His devil fruit, now known to relate to Nika, manifests joy as weapon. Elasticity is metaphorical. It represents conceptual flexibility. His body bends physics. His perspective bends politics. When he awakens his fruit, reality bends with him. Laughter becomes law. The government's panic when Luffy's awakening becomes known reveals the truth. They are not afraid of power scaling. They are afraid of symbolism. Symbols spread faster than armies. Joy as revolution is contagious. Tyranny cannot defend against joy because joy cannot be outlawed. It can only be suppressed. Suppression breeds curiosity. Curiosity breeds rebellion. Meanwhile, characters like Law and Kid represent alternative futures. Law embodies surgical justice. He cuts away corruption, piece by piece. Kid embodies industrial vengeance. His power attracts metallic scraps, metaphorically constructing weapons from societal debris. They both represent responses to oppression, but neither represents balance. Only Luffy's approach transcends vengeance. Laughing at injustice invalidates it. It removes its emotional leverage. Zoro's connection is philosophical. He walks a path where strength is individual accountability. He faces death willingly because death cannot intimidate someone who accepts it. Nami represents navigational intelligence. Without her, the world's chaos overwhelms the crew. She navigates not just seas but probability. Robin, as previously stated, preserves context. Brook preserves memory. Jinbei preserves diplomacy. Each member is a pillar of civilization. Luffy is the sun that binds them. Together they form a blueprint, a hypothetical government modeled not on hierarchy but on mutual respect. A crew is the perfect metaphor for a civilization. Diverse skill sets united by shared goals. It is not accidental that the Straw Hats resemble the ancient kingdom's ideals. They are not chosen. They resonate. In the end, character theories in One Piece are not about individuals. They are about archetypes. Joyboy is promise fulfilled. Emu is silence institutionalized. The Gorosei are stagnation curated. The admirals are experimentations of justice. The warlords are distractions licensed. The revolutionaries are vocabulary proliferated. The straw hats are unity actualized. and the will of D is the lens through which history regains clarity. When these archetypes converge, equilibrium returns. No discussion of character dynamics in One Piece can continue without addressing the enigmatic connection between lineage, symbolism, and cosmology. Bloodlines in this world are not genetic accidents. They are narrative conduits. Certain families carry marks, crests, and affinities that correspond to ancient sociopolitical functions. The Kazuki clan, for example, is not significant because they rule Wano. They are significant because they carve stone. Their legacy is intellectual preservation. Their crest resembles solar rays, indicating alignment with the ancient kingdom's philosophy of illumination. Meanwhile, the Don Quixote bloodline, once part of the 20 Kingdoms, symbolizes betrayal of enlightenment. Their departure from Maria Joie represents ideological deviation. Their descendants become embodiments of internal conflict. Doflamingo reveals what happens when privilege is stripped, but knowledge of privilege remains. His cruelty is not psychopathic. It is epistemological. He cannot tolerate a world where the concept of superiority collapses. He maintains order through fear because his identity cannot survive without hierarchy. The monkey family, on the other hand, embodies ideological rebellion. Garp rebels against the government by rejecting nobility and refusing advancement. Dragon rebels by dismantling narrative control. Luffy rebels by ignoring structure entirely. The family's name suggests chaotic energy, disruptive potential, and primal autonomy. Monkeys in myth represent mischief against celestial authority. This symbolism aligns perfectly with their narrative function. Meanwhile, the lineage of the Nefertari family demonstrates the opposite. They rejected the throne of the celestial dragons and remained on Earth, symbolizing humility and solidarity with common people. Their bloodline represents the branch of nobility that refused ascension into tyranny. This is why Vivi's storyline focuses not on her strength, but on her empathy. She embodies the ideal of leadership, not isolation, but integration. Then we arrive at the Gorosei's animal forms and their deeper meaning. Their transformations represent guardians of boundary states: wolf, boar, crane, ape, and jester-like archetypes. In esoteric myth, these animals guard thresholds between worlds: birth and death, life and dream, memory and oblivion. Their presence signals that the government does not merely rule territory, it rules transition. They regulate who may cross symbolic boundaries. They decide what ideas may pass from obscurity into consciousness. This explains their obsession with certain names disappearing. To erase a name is to prevent a concept from crossing the threshold into permanence. They do not kill rebels, they kill legacies. If the world forgets your name, your cause dies with it. By contrast, the D ensures that some names persist even in absence. Ace's execution should have erased his influence. Instead, it ignited the era. This demonstrates narrative immortality. When the world remembers you, death becomes irrelevant. Turning now to Yamato, their fascination with Odin reveals another narrative function: trans-historical identification. Yamato embodies the idea that identity is not inherited from blood, but chosen from myth. In One Piece, characters do not become great because of lineage alone. They choose legends to emulate. This means mythological archetypes are more powerful than genetics. This terrifies the government. If identity is programmable through narrative, then anyone can become a symbol. At the cosmic scale, characters like Zunesha reveal deeper history. This wandering elephant, punished for an ancient crime, continuously walks in penance. Its very existence implies judicial authority from a society that predates the Void Century. If ancient civilization could enact punishment that lasts millennia, then their legal system extended beyond the lifespan of individuals. It governed metaphysical continuity. This suggests that crimes against civilization resulted in existential consequences. Someone commanded Zunisha to walk. That command persists. Voice of all things operates as the input channel for ancient programming. The voice of all things, in turn, reveals another hidden layer. Certain individuals can hear not sound, but intention. They decode consciousness etched into matter. Objects remember feelings, not words. Poneglyphs are not merely read, they are sensed. This ability implies that consciousness in one piece is broadcastable. The world is permeated with metadata. Those who tune into it can decode the emotional residue of history. The government cannot censor this. They can only kill those who possess the receiver. When we examine Enel's journey to the moon, the cosmology becomes clearer. The lunar hieroglyphs reveal that winged people were once spacefaring. Their descent to Earth suggests colonization, not creation. This reframes humanity as an interstellar diaspora. If life arrived from beyond, then national borders are absurd. The government's authority becomes artificial. This is why they suppress the moon narrative. If the world acknowledges extraterrestrial ancestry, all monarchies collapse simultaneously. The Lunarians extend this cosmology further. Their flame never extinguishes, symbolizing continuity. Their wings represent ascension. Their resilience suggests bioengineered optimization. They were likely guardians of celestial architecture, responsible for regulating planetary energy. Their near extinction implies targeted genocide. The government did not fear their strength, it feared their memory. Sanji's eyebrow swirl suggests another thread. The Germa 66 science resembles ancient gene manipulation. Their exoskeletons, enhanced organs, and moral removal parallel devil fruit logic. This raises a question: are devil fruits templates for engineered modification? If so, then fruit powers are not magical deviations, but recovered functions. Their quirks and awakenings imitate ancient ethical frameworks. Power must align with intention. If misaligned, consequences emerge. Chopper's transformation research suggests that anyone can potentially trigger biological awakening. His rumble balls hack the interface of devil fruit biology. This implies that fruits are not random. They are structured modularly. They operate like software plugins. Ancient society may have designed them as tools for ideological specialization. Builders, communicators, protectors, innovators. Their modern misuse reflects technological drift. Frankie represents rediscovered augmentation. His body fuses cybernetics with ancient schematics. His dream is freedom of propulsion. Energy independence undermines tyranny. Brooke represents musical memory. Music carries rhythm across generations. The drums of liberation echo not just sound, but ideology. When rhythm spreads, fear shrinks. Jimbei represents social integration. His species embodies the ocean's diplomatic network. His acceptance into the Straw Hats symbolizes structural reparation. Fishmen are the most symbolically important race in the story. Once discrimination dissolves, the ocean becomes highway instead of prison. Combine the Straw Hats resolve each of the world's fractures: navigation, memory, diplomacy, engineering, communication, knowledge, perspective, identity, loyalty, and laughter. They are not a crew. They are a constitution. Each one repairs a failing subsystem. Together, they reenact the ancient kingdom's philosophy: diversity as strength. Finally, Shanks represents equilibrium without ideology. He preserves balance to protect the timing of revelation. He visits the five elders not to negotiate, but to measure their fear. His presence reveals panic in those who claim to rule everything. He embodies restraint. Without restraint, dawn arrives prematurely. Premature dawn burns instead of warms. The convergence of these character archetypes indicates that the final conflict will not be about strength, but synchronization. History will awaken through people, not weapons. The individuals positioned at the heart of this story carry not power, but perspective. When enough perspectives converge, the world will see clearly. The architecture of character in One Piece mirrors the architecture of civilization. Every individual embodies an aspect of the world's psychology, an echo of forgotten philosophies. Characters are not random personalities thrown into a plot. They are living metaphors carrying fragments of a dismantled cosmology. Understanding them is understanding the lost empire itself. Let us begin with Luffy, the anomaly that unites opposites. His nature blends contradiction, simplicity and profundity, chaos and order, laughter and revolution. Luffy's innocence is not naivety, it is enlightenment freed from cynicism. He believes without evidence, acts without overthinking, and liberates without permission. In a broken world governed by intellectual stagnation, innocence becomes rebellion. His laughter is not comedic, it is transcendent. It denies the seriousness of tyranny. When the government enforces despair as a social constant, joy becomes heresy. The paradox of Luffy's leadership lies in non-leadership. He does not command, he attracts. His crew is not bound by hierarchy, but by resonance. Every member joins because they recognize their fragment of the ancient kingdom's lost ideal within him. He is a gravitational center of philosophical alignment. His elasticity is metaphorical, the ability to stretch beyond personal limits, to adapt without breaking. That is what the world once was, a system flexible enough to survive change. When he fights, he does not conquer. He liberates meaning itself. Zoro represents the law of self-accountability. His creed is pure meritocracy, yet he kneels to no system that denies personal truth. His journey through wounds, endurance, and self-mastery mirrors the moral structure of Bushido, reinterpreted through existentialism. He seeks strength not to dominate, but to justify existence. Every scar is scripture, every duel a confession. He embodies the world's moral backbone, the courage to face chaos alone. If Luffy is light, Zoro is gravity, the force that keeps ideals grounded. Nami, the navigator, is the world's intellect. Her relationship with weather mirrors humanity's relationship with knowledge. Unpredictable, powerful, and often destructive when misunderstood. She reads chaos like scripture, transforming randomness into direction. She represents science in its purest form, observation without arrogance. Her maps symbolize not control but understanding. The act of mapping is the act of reconciling mystery with reason. When she redraws the world, she is unconsciously rewriting history's stolen geography. Usopp represents narrative creation itself, a liar who becomes truth. His lies foreshadow reality, proving that belief constructs world lines. He is humanity's storyteller, the psychological immune system of civilization. Every time he invents a tale, he prepares the world to receive it. His transformation into a hero is symbolic of collective myth-making. Stories, once told enough times, become real. The government suppresses myths for this reason. Belief changes physics. Sanji represents ethics of desire. His struggle between instinct and discipline reflects humanity's tension between appetite and principle. His code of chivalry is outdated yet divine. a relic of forgotten moral elegance. His refusal to strike women, often mocked, is philosophical resistance against corruption of empathy. He feeds everyone, friend or foe, because hunger transcends morality. In feeding others, he restores divine equilibrium between need and grace. Chopper embodies scientific redemption. His hybrid form is living proof that categories can dissolve. Beast and man, doctor and experiment, innocence and intellect, he unites contradictions into harmony. His medicine symbolizes hope as technology. The world declared him monster because it feared what he represented. Integration. In a segregated society, synthesis is subversion. Robin represents historical continuity. Her very existence is rebellion against oblivion. She preserves memory when the world prefers amnesia. Her power to sprout limbs anywhere reflects intellectual expansion. Knowledge multiplies. Each arm she grows is another reach into forbidden archives. She reconstructs the past not as nostalgia, but as responsibility. The moment she learns the full truth, she does not collapse. She smiles. Knowledge once feared becomes peace. Frankie symbolizes reconstruction. His mechanical body is the embodiment of repair. He takes broken things and makes them functional again. His obsession with ships is symbolic. A ship is a society, a vessel carrying dreams through storms. The Thousand Sunny represents continuity of purpose. Its solar engine is not coincidence. It is literal dawn energy. Frankie is the modern manifestation of ancient engineers who powered civilizations through renewable faith and possibility. Brooke embodies time's mercy. His music bridges life and death. In a world that erases memory, music becomes immortal. The Soul King is not a title of ego, but of transcendence. His song revives hearts numb by despair. His laughter, skeletal and eternal, mocks mortality. He proves that art outlives the artist. The ancient kingdom likely built its philosophy on this same principle, to embed truth in art so that even after death, culture would sing. Jinbei stands as reconciliation incarnate. He merges land and sea, prejudice and acceptance. His presence in the crew signifies that history's wounds can heal. His strength is not dominance, but calm authority. He listens before acting, representing diplomacy as power. In a world defined by fear of difference, he is the living counterargument. The ocean obeys him because he embodies its truth, depth without arrogance. Together, the Straw Hats represent civilization reassembled. Each one repairs a philosophical fracture. Luffy restores joy. Zoro restores courage. Nami restores understanding. Usopp restores imagination. Sanji restores compassion. Chopper restores integration. Robin restores memory. Frankie restores functionality. Brooke restores art. Jinbei restores coexistence. Their ship is the Ark of Dawn, carrying the fragments of a world that once was whole. Outside this harmony stands Blackbeard, the antithesis of synthesis. Where Luffy integrates, Teach accumulates. He hoards powers as if consumption could equal transcendence. He is the empire of greed made flesh, the mirror image of Imu's hidden control. His darkness absorbs everything, even meaning. He is entropy, yet his existence is necessary. Dawn requires shadow to be visible. The final war will not be between good and evil, but between unity and fragmentation. All of this leads back to the concept of inheritance. In One Piece, inheritance is not blood, it is resonance. Ideals reincarnate through those who can carry them. Roger's words echo through Luffy not by prophecy, but by recognition. Ideals once spoken find new hosts. The world cannot suppress them because they are viral in nature. This is why even villains repeat the philosophies of heroes twisted through self-interest. The ideology of freedom spreads indiscriminately. It infects everyone who dreams. The true genius of Oda's character construction lies here. Every major character represents an evolutionary step towards societal reassembly. Each one reclaims an aspect of humanity lost during the Void Century. They are living poneglyphs, walking inscriptions carrying lessons forward. When they converge at the end of the story, the world will not just change politically, it will remember emotionally. That is the heart of the saga. The end of the Great Pirate Era is not the end of adventure, it is the end of amnesia. To understand devil fruits, we must abandon the notion that they are magical anomalies. Magic is randomness. Devil fruits are consistent, predictable, rule-bound, and linked to worldview. They emerge from intention, not chaos. The government refers to them as unnatural because acknowledging them as natural forces would imply acknowledgement of an ancient operating system embedded into reality. Their distribution, taxonomy, and behavior reflect the architecture of a lost civilization. Devil fruits grant abilities that correspond to conceptual categories. Paramecia manifest abstraction, Zoan manifest identity, and Logia manifest environment. This triad mirrors the ancient weapons, land, sea, sky. It is the philosophical division of existence. Paramecia alter rules within the boundaries of self. Zoan alter identity across the boundary of instinct. Logia alter the relationship between body and environment. These are not powers, they are permissions. Each devil fruit is a fragment of an ancient algorithm, a piece of code meant to augment humanity's ability to coexist. The reason only one person can eat a fruit at a time is not scarcity, it is narrative exclusivity. The world itself assigns conceptual specialization to prevent duplication of philosophy. If two individuals embody the same concept simultaneously, reality would face ideological conflict. The fruits are not competitive, they're curated. Their weaknesses reveal even more. When a user falls into the sea and becomes immobilized, we are told that the ocean rejects them. But the sea is not a punisher. It is the boundary between potential and reality. Devil fruits represent deviation from baseline humanity. Water represents return to default state. When submerged, the fruit's ability cancels out. The user is not drowning because they are powerless. They are drowning because they temporarily no longer belong to the updated world. It is a reversion to primordial form. This also explains sea stone. It emits a frequency that mimics the world's baseline code. Devil fruit users weaken because their powers are conceptual overlays. Sea stone cancels the overlay by emitting the original signal. This implies that devil fruits install a secondary operating system over the user's biology. Awakenings are the moment the operating system expands beyond the user's body and rewrites the surrounding environment. This is not power creep. It is software propagation. Paramecia awakenings alter the rules of matter. Zoan awakenings hijack instinct. Logia awakenings rewrite environmental conditions. Each awakening is a glimpse of ancient mastery. This suggests that devil fruits were originally designed as tools to terraform the world, repair ecosystems, maintain atmospheric regulation, and improve communication. A world perfectly regulated by awakened users would be balanced, peaceful, and resilient. Tyranny thrives only in the absence of widespread awakening. The government suppresses knowledge of awakening because the moment citizens realize what their fruits can do, civilization decentralizes. Local communities could reshape their territory. Desert islands could bloom. Storm-racked ships could calm. Disease-ridden regions could heal. Awakening democratizes the gods. It is divinity distributed among civilians. This leads us to the most controversial implication. Devil fruits did not originate on Earth. Lunar hieroglyphs depict experimentation with gene modification. Individuals possessed abilities that defy terrestrial evolution. It is possible that fruits were created as adaptive modules for colonists who arrived on the planet, each fruit designed to grant specialized roles. The variety of fruits reflects the diversity of tasks required to terraform a young world. The hatred of the sea may symbolize conflict between planetary systems and foreign biology. Earth itself rejects conceptual augmentation. This antagonism is philosophical. The sea represents the world's original form. The fruits represent ancient upgrades. The tension between them is unresolved code conflict. This conflict produced the taxonomy. Zone reflect the world's biological heritage. Paramecia reflect cultural imagination. Logia reflect natural forces. Zoan users struggle with instinct because identity is primal code. Paramecia struggle with imagination because abstraction is volatile. Logia struggle with ego because environmental dominance invites delusion. The weaknesses of each category are not accidents. They are balance mechanisms. Artificial fruits reveal something even more important. When Caesar attempted to replicate devil fruits, the result was incomplete. Smiles produce forced laughter. This is not a comedic bug. It is a psychological glitch. The original fruits embed emotional balance. Artificial ones corrupt emotional code. The resulting manic laughter symbolizes incomplete identity alignment. It suggests that the ancient civilization understood emotion as structural stability. Without proper coding, emotion fractures. Caesar reproduced power, but failed to reproduce harmony. The government's attempts to recreate these fruits tell us that they do not understand their own world. They hoard power without comprehending its philosophical purpose. Their artificial fruits produce obedience through emotional desynchronization. If laughter is liberation, manic laughter is enslavement. The villainy of the sad factory is not chemical, it is narrative. Now consider mythical zones. They represent deities, legends, and archetypes. Their existence proves that the world once recognized archetypal beings as functional principles. Hito Hito no Mi, model Nika, embodies liberation through joy. This is not random. Joyboy's power was systemic. He could rewrite the world through narrative resonance. When Luffy awakens, he does not overpower his enemy. He overpowers fear. The world bends because fear is the world's emotional foundation. Remove fear and structure collapses. Ancient society likely held festivals where drumming aligned heartbeats. If the entire world beats in rhythm, biology synchronizes. Chaos disappears. This explains the drums of liberation. Rhythm is a biological update. Luffy embodies distributed joy. Joy is the only force that cannot be weaponized against itself. Finally, we must confront the ultimate implication. Devil fruits contain memories. When someone eats a fruit, they awaken echoes of ancient purpose. Powers manifest differently across users because the fruit adapts to the psychology of the host. This suggests that every fruit is an AI module, interpreting user intent and translating it into physical laws. When awakened, the environment becomes an extension of consciousness. This is reality bending through symbolic osmosis. Devil fruits are not curses, they are ancient permissions. They allow the world to evolve through imagination. The sea rejects them not because they are evil, but because the world is incomplete. When the world is repaired, the sea will stop punishing fruit users. Balance will return. The final dawn is not a war, it is a software patch. If devil fruits are fragments of a greater design, then awakening them is the act of remembering. The world we see today is amnesic. Its natural laws are fragments of an earlier, more integrated system. Each fruit user reenacts an ancient function, an echo of what the world used to be capable of. Awakening is not evolution, it is restoration. The ancients designed fruits as emotional technology. Every power originates from desire. When someone eats a fruit, they absorb not just ability but aspiration. The fruit bonds with the user's subconscious, aligning its function to the emotional truth of the host. This is why powers often mirror personality. Luffy's elasticity embodies joy and adaptability. Crocodile's sand reflects distrust and control. Doflamingo's strings expose manipulation and divine arrogance. Law's surgery fruit represents the desire to heal and dissect truth simultaneously. Each fruit is a mirror that exposes inner nature. Because they interface directly with emotion, fruits cannot coexist within the same person without dissonance. The world's energy grid recognizes this contradiction as fatal. Blackbeard's body, however, allows it. His biology harmonizes incompatible frequencies. This implies that he contains multiple emotional signatures, perhaps the remains of twin souls or split consciousness. He is an emotional chimera, a creature that defies balance. His darkness fruit does not symbolize evil, it symbolizes absorption. He can integrate what others reject, but integration without purpose becomes consumption. Blackbeard embodies entropy. He is the hunger of history itself. The sea's hostility toward fruit users is therefore symbolic. The ocean, the mother of all life, rejects artificial evolution. It drowns arrogance. The moment someone consumes a fruit, they become incompatible with nature's flow. The only way to restore balance is through awakening, when the user's will and the world's will synchronize. Awakened users no longer fight against the sea. They float within their own domain. They rewrite natural law in harmony rather than rebellion. Consider how Logia users perceive the world. They dissolve into elements, merging with phenomena. They are not transforming into something else. They are remembering what it feels like to be everything. When Enel became lightning, he was not gaining power. He was regaining memory. He ascended to the moon because his fruit resonated with its origin. The moon represents data storage. Its silent surface contains the archives of creation. Enel's journey symbolizes reconnection with the root server of existence. Zoan awakenings reveal identity's fragility. To become an animal is to remember instinct. The ancient designers embedded genetic empathy into these fruits. The user's consciousness expands to include that of the species. This empathy was once meant to unify humans with nature. Over time, the purpose was forgotten, and the transformation was treated as weaponry. The government calls it savagery. In truth, it is communion. Paramecia awakenings, on the other hand, externalize imagination. The world bends to idea. Kid, Doflamingo, and Luffy all demonstrate this. Their awakenings make environment obey narrative logic. Matter becomes metaphor. Doflamingo turns the city into a puppet theater. Kid magnetizes the battlefield, turning violence into sculpture. Luffy converts existence into comedy, bending reality to laughter. These awakenings prove that imagination shapes ontology. The world does not resist creativity, it yearns for it. The implications extend beyond combat. Imagine an awakened tailor weaving cloth that resists decay, an awakened farmer who grows food regardless of soil, an awakened musician who harmonizes climate through sound. These are the possibilities the ancient kingdom once cultivated. Their society operated not on machines, but on emotions embodied through awakened users. It was not industrial, it was empathetic. The government's fear of devil fruits comes from this truth. If people rediscover emotional technology, hierarchy becomes meaningless. A society in which every individual can manifest potential through emotion cannot be ruled. Power becomes internal, not distributable. Currency, politics, and control dissolve. The world stabilizes itself through will alignment. This is the true meaning of dawn, synchronization of consciousness. Even the fruit's appearance reinforces its function. Each pattern resembles a spiral, a logarithmic curve found in galaxies, shells, and storms. Spirals symbolize iteration, evolution through cycles. Each fruit embodies self-reference. To eat one is to insert yourself into the recursion of creation. The swirl pattern is cosmic handwriting, a reminder that every life form is part of an infinite spiral of learning. Smiles, the artificial variants, lack this pattern naturally. Their laughter is not genuine, it is coded. Artificial joy without empathy becomes grotesque. Their flaw is philosophical, not mechanical. They mimic the appearance of hope but produce only performance. They prove that emotion cannot be engineered without understanding meaning. If devil fruits are memories, then awakening is remembrance, and the sea is forgetfulness. Every drowning is symbolic regression. Every awakening is symbolic evolution. This duality governs the world's metaphysics. The great irony is that the government calls fruit users cursed, when in truth they are the world's only hope for healing. They carry the pieces of an ancient repair system embedded into biology. This brings us to Nika, the sun god. His legend is not religious, it is scientific allegory. Nika represents emotional thermodynamics, the principle that joy generates motion. When people laugh, energy disperses, systems loosen, and entropy is reversed. Luffy's heartbeat aligns with this principle. His drums are not musical, they are regulatory. They synchronize frequency across living beings. When he fights, the world itself begins to laugh. Fear evaporates, matter reorganizes. This phenomenon is not unique to Luffy. It is latent in all fruit users. Each ability is a fragment of divine function. When the fragments unite, when humanity remembers how to harmonize imagination, instinct, and environment, the system will reboot. The dawn will not be a sunrise. It will be a resonance, a collective heartbeat echoing through land, sea, and sky. If devil fruits are fragments of a forgotten operating system, then the world's current imbalance is the result of corrupted distribution. Powers once meant to uplift communities are now hoarded, weaponized, and commodified. This corruption does not originate in the fruits, but in the hands that wield them. The government fears not the abilities themselves, but the ideology they imply. A civilization where power is internal renders external authority obsolete. This fear manifests in political structures. The world government legalizes violence through the Marines and criminalizes violence through piracy. Yet both systems respond to the presence of devil fruits. Where one fruit emerges, the government sends researchers, assassins, and agents. They monitor genealogies, hunting families likely to awaken. This suggests that devil fruits do not choose randomly. They gravitate towards psychological profiles capable of manifesting their philosophy. Children destined to challenge hierarchy often end up consuming fruits that amplify their defiance. The black market intensifies this corruption. Wealthy warlords purchase fruits as luxury items. Nations buy them to intimidate neighbors. Pirates covet them to build personal empires. Every transaction distances fruits from their intended function. When ancient civilization integrated them, distribution was likely merit-based or ritualistic. Fruits were probably bestowed upon individuals who demonstrated emotional alignment with their core concept. In the modern world, greed determines access, breaking the harmony between personality and power. This dissonance leads to madness. Users whose hearts do not align with their fruit experience psychological distortion. They either force their personality to match their ability or twist their ability to enforce their will. Doflamingo's strings are not merely control, they are denial of autonomy. Crocodile's sand is not dryness, it is the sterilization of trust. Moria's shadows represent avoidance of personal responsibility. The fruit exposes the user's deepest wound. Awakening occurs not when power reaches maximum output, but when ego confronts trauma. Only then does the world accept new laws. This trauma explains why fruits disappear and reappear. When a user dies, their fruit reincarnates in nearby fruit flesh, but the pattern is not spatial coincidence. It is emotional proximity. The reincarnation is guided by narrative momentum. A fruit cannot return to a region that does not need its philosophy. It manifests where its lesson must continue. Fate in One Piece is not predestination. It is a narrative inertia. Consider the Yami Yami no Mi. Darkness does not merely consume, it reveals. It forces truth. Blackbeard's ability to negate other fruits symbolizes erasure of illusions. When confronted, powers lose metaphorical meaning. This is why his existence terrifies the Five Elders. He is the audit of power. Every empire collapses when audited. Even more telling is the Gura Gura no Mi. Tremors symbolize the shattering of illusions. Whitebeard did not shake the earth. He shook certainty. When he declared the existence of One Piece with his dying breath, he awakened ideological earthquakes worldwide. His fruit's true purpose was narrative revelation. Fruits respond to narrative archetypes. They select hosts who broaden their meaning. Luffy expanded elasticity to liberation. Robin expanded blooming to knowledge. Law expanded cutting to surgical truth. Each user evolves the philosophical purpose of the fruit further. This implies that fruits learn. Their patterns encode new interpretations. When reincarnated, they carry echoes of former hosts. The world remembers through them. This cumulative evolution explains why fruits vary in strength. Early hosts may have expressed them narrowly. Over centuries, conceptual boundaries expanded. Modern awakenings surpass ancient limitations because emotional vocabulary has grown. A fruit's power is proportional to the user's imagination. This raises a terrifying implication. Imagination can break the world. The Five Elders understand this. The more a society imagines freedom, the more likely awakening spreads. Hockey evolves similarly. It is spiritual literacy. Those who awaken hockey perceive truth. Those who awaken fruits reshape truth. When both awaken simultaneously, authority collapses. This dual awakening is the final fear of the government. It would allow individuals to rewrite society's physics and psychology simultaneously. Tyranny cannot survive that. Now consider the origins of fruit taxonomy. Zoans represent primal self. Paramecia represent conceptual desire. Logia represent environmental control. Combined, they reconstruct emotional, mental, and physical ecosystems. In the ancient kingdom, users likely formed councils, each managing their domain. Zoans moderated biological equilibrium. Logias moderated climate. Paramecias moderated culture. This tripartite system stabilized civilization. The government inverted this. They brand zones as beasts, Paramecia as freaks, and Logia as disasters. By redefining roles, they severed emotional connection to ancestral purpose. The stigma surrounding fruits is political programming. Even the term devil fruit is propaganda. No one from the ancient era would have named them devils. The term frames power as curse. When society fears power, society obeys authority. Renaming is censorship disguised as caution. Artificial fruits reveal the government's desperation. They attempt to replicate emotional technology without understanding feeling. The results are incomplete joy, compulsive laughter, and hollow identity. A society of smile users would be docile, emotionally flattened. Tragedy disguised as comedy. The greatest secret is this: devil fruits are humanity's attempt to become co-authors of reality. When eaten, they grant permission to rewrite local physics. The government denies this, not because it threatens safety, but because it threatens monopoly. Authority rests on the belief that only some may decide how the world should be. Fruits democratize imagination. At the end of the story, when the truth is revealed, fruits will not disappear. They will blossom. Abundance will replace scarcity. The sea will forgive. The world will harmonize. When ecosystems stabilize and trauma heals, devil fruits will no longer reject their hosts. They will integrate into natural law. Attempts to destroy them will fail, not because they are indestructible, but because they are necessary. The dawn is not the end of devil fruits, it is their completion. If we follow the trail of symbolism surrounding devil fruits, we arrive inevitably at their energetic nature. The power granted by the fruits does not come from calories or muscle mass. Users do not tire through physical depletion alone. Their exhaustion correlates to willpower, emotions, and spiritual conviction. This reveals that devil fruits draw from a field of energy that predates biology. Hockey interacts with this field. It is not a counter to devil fruits. It is the complementary force that stabilizes them. When hockey and devil fruits interact, we glimpse the original architecture of the world. Armament hardens imagination into matter. Observation stretches consciousness forward in time. Conquerors overrides emotional consensus, establishing narrative dominance. These are not combat techniques. They are traces of divine governance. In the ancient era, citizens likely used hockey not to fight, but to calibrate ecosystems. Their will synchronized with nature's will. The greatest misconception is that devil fruits are random powers. They are highly specific because they represent emotional archetypes. Rubber symbolizes resilience under pressure. Fire symbolizes passion and consumption. Light symbolizes direction and truth. Darkness symbolizes hidden potential. Earthquake symbolizes destabilization of narrative. Gravity symbolizes consequence. These concepts form a metaphysical pantheon, not unlike the gods of myth, where each ability served to maintain balance. The ancient kingdom may have distributed fruits intentionally to ensure emotional diversity. A society with too many gravity users collapses under consequence. A society with too many light users becomes blinded by truth. Diversity balanced the emotional climate. When the government destroyed the system, the fruits scattered, breaking the distributed network of empathy. The modern world suffers from emotional silos because the global emotional field collapsed. This collapse explains the erratic weather of the Grand Line. Climate once responded to collective emotional resonance. If a region experienced joy, sunshine followed. If resentment dominated, storms brewed. Ancient festivals likely existed not because people worshiped gods, but because they regulated climate through synchronized emotion. Music, dance, and drums of liberation were tools of meteorological governance. The world did not simply celebrate, they maintained atmospheric equilibrium together. After the Void Century, when emotional synchronization ceased, Weather fell into chaos. The government calls this natural mystery. In truth, it is neglected maintenance. This is why Nika's drums matter. They are not a musical gimmick. They are planetary resonance. When Luffy awakens, the world's emotional data becomes audible again. Devil fruits retain echoes of these ancient functions. When awakened, they spread control outward, because the user's emotional field becomes strong enough to overwrite local entropy. Doflamingo's awakening turned buildings into strings because his worldview reduces everything to puppetry. Luffy turns the world into rubber because he sees possibility everywhere. Awakenings externalize worldview. They reveal how users perceive reality. This means that devil fruits are psychological diagnostics. The world's greatest secrets are written into what abilities people manifest. If too many destructive fruits appear in a generation, it suggests cultural despair. If many creative fruits appear, it suggests cultural rebirth. Fruits are not evil. They are psychological weather vanes. The world itself signals its emotional state through them. Artificial replication fails not because technology is insufficient, but because intention is absent. Caesar Clown produced power without empathy. Vegapunk, though genius, could not instill emotional purpose because he studies logic, not spirit. Only someone who understands both can complete a fruit. This implies that the ancient kingdom fused science and spirituality into a single discipline. Their researchers were likely philosophers, musicians, and engineers simultaneously. Their technology resonated with soul. The government's greatest fear is emotional education. If the average citizen awakens hockey, they become emotionally literate. If they awaken fruits, they become cosmologically literate. Literacy in either creates resistance, literacy in both creates revolution. This is why the Navy trains hockey under strict supervision. They weaponize awareness while preventing enlightenment. In contrast, pirates awaken hockey naturally because they face death willingly. Death strips narrative illusion, revealing perspective. Those who walk toward death laugh freely. This is the link between laughter and awakening. When fear dissolves, ego dissolves. When ego dissolves, worldview expands. When worldview expands, awakening follows. The sea's hatred of fruits hints at a deeper truth. Water represents collective unconscious. It is the memory of the planet. Fruits override biological coding. Water, therefore, cancels unauthorized modification. However, if the world is repaired, if emotional resonance returns, the sea will likely forgive fruit users. The original purpose of drowning was not punishment, but correction. A corrupted user loses buoyancy because the world refuses to support unchecked will. At the end of the journey, when dawn arrives, the world will regain synchronization. Awakened users will not drown because emotional equilibrium will remove the biological penalty. People will coexist with their abilities harmoniously. Storms will cease. Currents will align. The ancient weapons, once reactivated, will stabilize the world. In this final age, devil fruits will no longer be feared. They will be understood. Children will eat fruits not to fight, but to express artistic and social purpose. Water will no longer reject them. Gravity will no longer punish them. In this equilibrium, nature and imagination coexist gently. The greatest irony is this: devil fruits are not the evolution of humanity. They are humanity's original state. The world devolved after the war. Fruits are not gifts. They are reminders. They whisper what people used to be capable of when joy governed civilization. When the drums echo across the world once more, emotional technology will reawaken. Dawn will not be light in the sky. It will be light in the heart. Only then will humanity remember its true form, As the final saga unfolds, the world of One Piece approaches a point of no return. Every narrative thread has been converging toward a single philosophical confrontation: memory versus silence. The war to come will not be fought for land, treasure, or ego. It will be fought for context. When context returns, oppression evaporates instantly. The world government's greatest enemy is not strength, but clarity. The first misconception about the final antagonistic force is that Emu stands alone. Emu is not a villain in the traditional sense. Emu is the embodiment of a worldview, stability achieved through perpetual dusk. Their throne is empty, not just physically, but conceptually. They represent the absence of narrative, the erasure of authorship. To defeat Emu is not to strike them down physically, but to restore perspective. Once the world realizes the throne is hollow, power dissolves. The five elders function as the immune system of this worldview. Their job is not governance, but filtration. They determine which information enters history's bloodstream and which ideas must be destroyed before they spread. Their monstrous forms reflect the philosophy that identity can be sacrificed for preservation of structure. They are guardians of stagnation. They do not evolve. They endure. But the greatest threat to this stagnation arises not from the Straw Hats alone. It arises from convergence. Revolutionary armies are spreading vocabulary. The Yonko destabilize economic roots. Scholars resurrect forbidden grammar, and pirate emperors challenge military legitimacy. Each faction compromises one pillar of government control. When pillars collapse simultaneously, the structure crumbles without direct assault. The true final antagonist, however, is not a person. It is architecture. The red line is a monument to separation, a scar carved into the planet to prevent cultural unity. When it falls, seas merge, migrations resume, ecosystems reconnect, and history flows freely. The collapse of the red line will be more transformative than any victory in combat. Geography shapes ideology. When the map changes, the mind changes. Laugh Tale holds the memory required to justify this transformation. Its revelation will demonstrate that the world was designed to be whole. Fragmentation is the lie. Once the truth is known, islands will not demand independence. They will demand connection. The government cannot defeat connection. Armies cannot kill interdependence. This leads us to the ancient weapons. Their final activation will not be destructive. They will restore what was broken. Poseidon will negotiate migration. Pluton will reshape landmasses. Uranus will stabilize atmosphere. These weapons are not threats. They are tools of reconstruction. The world's oceans will calm. Storm belts will vanish. Trade will flourish. This will make authoritarian control impossible. Tyranny thrives on scarcity. With abundance, it withers. Blackbeard's role emerges here as the embodiment of unsynchronized awakening. He is the anomaly that exploits chaos. In the climax, Blackbeard will weaponize awakening not to liberate the world, but to monopolize possibility. He will attempt to rewrite reality around selfish will. In doing so, he will expose the danger of power disconnected from empathy. His defeat will symbolize the rejection of consumption as identity. Shanks will intervene as regulator of tempo. His greatest contribution is timing. He slows chaos so the world can process revelation. When he finally moves, his purpose will be complete. His destiny is not to conquer, but to ensure the world does not burn before dawn. Shanks is the shield that prevents premature awakening from tearing civilization apart. When his role ends, history accelerates. Dragon's revolution is not a rebellion against government, but against meaninglessness. He spreads literacy, not fear. His objective is to restore civic imagination. Without imagination, awakening stagnates. He intends to dismantle silence, not authority. When the truth emerges, authority will dismantle itself. The Gorosei will respond to this rising harmony with escalation. Their monstrous forms are metaphors for the state's final mutation. When institutions face existential threat, they shed civility and reveal primal instinct. Their transformation is not horror, but honesty. In these forms, they embody their original role as celestial guardians of transition. They will fight not to win, but to delay. Meanwhile, the admirals will fracture. Some will preserve justice through authoritarian interpretation, others through compassion. The true nature of justice will finally be debated openly. In that debate, law will evolve. Justice does not collapse, it matures. The final battle will take place on two planes, physical and conceptual. The physical plane will decide survival. The conceptual plane will decide narrative. If the world understands what it sees, the government loses before the fight begins. If the world misunderstands, tyranny can rebrand damage as salvation. Perception is the battlefield. The straw hats, when assembled with allies, will not merely represent a pirate crew. They will represent civilization's evolutionary blueprint. Each of them embodies a repair mechanism for societal wounds. When united, they demonstrate what the ancient kingdom once was. A living council of diverse perspectives sink through joy. The final clash will be triggered not by violence, but by knowledge. Once the contents of the Rio Poneglyph become public, citizens will realize the government is unnecessary. The idea of a ruling class becomes absurd. When people recognize their own agency, kingship collapses. This is the dawn, not light, but literacy. The world will then face its greatest challenge, mercy. The temptation to punish the celestial dragons will be immense, but justice born of vengeance becomes tyranny inverted. True dawn requires forgiveness, not annihilation. The world must transcend its trauma. That is the final test. When dawn arrives, the ocean will finally accept devil fruit users. The rejection was never curse, it was warning. Once the world stabilizes, compatibility returns. Humanity will regain its intended form. Devil fruits will integrate into natural law. The scars of history will fade. The last image of One Piece will not be a throne. It will be a horizon, a symbol not of dominance, but of possibility. The sun will rise, and for the first time in 1,000 years, it will rise on a world that remembers. As the final war unfolds, the current world order will fracture faster than any political faction can contain. The world government's legitimacy is already eroding. The moment the public witnesses coordinated defiance from multiple nations, citizens will realize that obedience was never biological, it was cultural. The illusion of invincibility disappears the moment someone survives saying no. Multiple front lines will emerge simultaneously. Revolutions will erupt across islands that have silently tolerated oppression. The admirals will be forced to divide their forces, weakening centralized response. Intelligence networks will collapse under data saturation. Cypherpol agents will no longer know which narrative to suppress because too many truths will surface at once. Darkness cannot extinguish 10,000 candles. The celestial dragons will panic. Their ideology cannot survive transparency. They will flee toward Marie-Joie's deepest chambers, protected not by soldiers, but by tradition. Tradition is their armor. When tradition is questioned, that armor rusts. Their pleas will reveal their dependency on divine image. Without it, they are simply aristocrats stripped of context. Meanwhile, the Revolutionary Army will shift strategy. Dragon never intended to destroy structures physically, he intended to dismantle their epistemology. When citizens exchange stories freely, revolution becomes redundant. He will focus not on dethroning rulers, but on elevating narrative literacy. Once the common people understand the nature of propaganda, the entire falsified spectrum of justice collapses. The Yonko, previously independent titans, will polarize into archetypal roles. Luffy will embody convergence, Blackbeard will embody cannibalization, and Buggy will ironically embody decentralization through unintentional symbolism. Buggy's accidental worship will reveal that power can be generated spontaneously through shared belief, not talent. This will humiliate hierarchy. Law will serve as the surgeon of history, cutting away inherited trauma. Kid will represent the collapse of alternative conquest models, showing that violence without ideology is obsolete. Former warlords will symbolize outdated systems struggling to find moral footing in a world that no longer requires legalized pirates. This moral confusion will expose the government's hypocrisy. The Marines will fracture visibly. Kobe will embody matured idealism. Fujitora will represent lawful compassion, advocating a judiciary that acknowledges emotional reality. Akainu will retreat in existential rigidity, his justice becoming fossilized. He will stand not as villain, but as tragedy, someone who confused law with morality. Kizaru will reveal the danger of apathy. Light without direction becomes blindness. Admirals will no longer represent strength. They will represent philosophical dialectics. The real catalyst will be Egghead. Vegapunk's message, broadcast globally, will detonate silence itself. He will reveal not military secrets, but conceptual frameworks. He will explain that the world's mystery is engineered, that ignorance is systemic, and that technology once harmonized with nature. Citizens will realize that their suffering was optional. Once optionality is recognized, obedience dissolves instantly. At that moment, Emu will abandon subtlety. Their existence will be exposed through reaction. The throne that was empty by tradition will no longer be empty symbolically. Emu's attempt to silence the broadcast will be witnessed by billions. A ruler who hides can survive. A ruler who is seen hiding loses mythic power. The five elders will assume monstrous forms publicly. Their transformations will not be tactical. They will be psychological warfare. They will attempt to terrify the world back into submission. But terror is an outdated tool in an age of shared information. The more monstrous they become, the more humanity will see them as relics of cyclical tyranny. The red line will become the focal point of attention. Its presence will be questioned globally. Scholars and commoners alike will realize that no natural formation divides oceans so perfectly. The call to dismantle it will grow. When the truth emerges that the line prevented unity by design, its legitimacy expires instantly. At the narrative peak, Zunesha will approach. Its presence will signal temporal forgiveness. The punishment imposed millennia ago will be lifted the moment the world reclaims memory. Zunesha's trumpeting will harmonize with the drums of liberation, synchronizing global rhythm. When hearts beat in unison, the world updates. Dawn is uploaded into consciousness. Joyboy's return is not about reincarnation. It is about narrative readiness. The world had to become disillusioned enough to receive joy without corruption. Luffy is the correct vessel because he represents possibility without ego. He does not conquer through ideology. He liberates through joy. His victory will be symbolic, not political. Blackbeard's demise will be philosophical. His attempt to hoard possibility will fail because possibility cannot be centralized. The more he consumes, the more the world rejects him. His downfall will demonstrate that evolution cannot be monopolized. When he falls, it will signify the rejection of cannibalistic ideology. The ancient weapons will activate as restoration protocols. Poseidon will call sea kings to regulate oceanic migration, transporting cultures safely. Pluton will reshape continental boundaries, merging islands into continents. Uranus will dissipate atmospheric storms and stabilize climate. The calm belt will dissolve. Navigation will democratize. Pirates will become explorers, not rebels. Trade routes will flourish. Cultural exchange will cure isolation. The fall of Maria Joie will be anticlimactic. Palaces collapse not through warfare, but through irrelevance. When no one obeys, no one rules. The celestial dragons will stand powerless because no mythology remains to protect them. Naked aristocracy is pathetic. As dawn arrives, devil fruits will evolve. Their rejection penalty will fade. Immersion in water will no longer be lethal. This will signal that humanity has finally harmonized with imagination. The sea, once mother and judge, will embrace her children. Waves will calm. Currents will align. Emotionally synchronized populations produce atmospheric equilibrium. Finally, Laugh-Tale's secret will be revealed. The treasure is not wealth, not weaponry, not prophecy. It is instruction. The final Poneglyph reveals how to repair the world. Roger did not change civilization because he lacked the will to implement it. He passed the torch because society was not ready. Luffy is not stronger. He is freer. Freedom is readiness. When the story ends, the greatest victory will be memory. The world will remember who it was before fear mutilated culture. The sun will rise not because night was defeated, but because people opened their eyes. As the final confrontation intensifies, the world will discover that the most devastating force is not violence, but truth. When knowledge spreads without intermediary, the government's greatest weapon, narrative monopoly, evaporates. Armies do not dissolve through casualties, they dissolve through doubt. Marines will question orders, civilians will question history, and nations will question tribute. A ruler can tolerate disobedience, but not irrelevance. The fall of Mary Joie will begin internally. Noble families will fracture as younger generations witness the futility of their inherited divinity. Some will abandon celestial identity, blending into the world they once looked down upon. Others will cling desperately to imagined superiority, retreating into fanaticism. This ideological schism will implode aristocracy from within. Tyranny rots fastest at its center. Simultaneously, the seraphim, living weapons constructed from stolen potential, will malfunction. Their obedience depends on clear hierarchical command structures. When those structures conflict, their programming collapses. The world will witness living proof that you cannot manufacture loyalty. Loyalty without love decays into confusion. The seraphim, meant to be perfect soldiers, will symbolize the failure of engineered obedience. Emu will respond by attempting to erase entire nations with ancient atmospheric manipulation. This is not cruelty, it is strategy. When ideology loses credibility, fear becomes the final defense. But destruction on a global stage will reveal that the government's claim of guardianship was always a lie. A guardian does not annihilate the child it pretends to protect. The Revolutionary Army will focus not on conquering Maria Joie, but on protecting refugees. This will earn global respect. Their revolution is not invasion, it is compassion scaled. As nations witness evacuation efforts, the world's moral compass will gravitate toward Dragon. Leadership is defined by who you protect, not who you command. Saba will emerge as the voice of testimony. Witnessing the massacre of the Lulusia kingdom will radicalize his rhetoric. His speeches will resonate because he survived annihilation. Martyrs are dangerous to tyrants not because they die, but because they refuse to disappear. Sabo's survival will destroy the myth of the government's omnipotence. The Marines will evolve into two distinct philosophies, one loyal to justice, the other loyal to hierarchy. Smoker, Kobe, and Fujitora will advocate reform, arguing that justice without compassion is tyranny. Akainu will embody the fossilization of doctrine. His rigidity, once useful, becomes liability in a world waking from fear. He will stand alone, iron unbent, even as the world around him softens. His tragedy lies not in villainy, but in misapplied conviction. Kizaru will hesitate. This hesitation is fatal to authoritarianism. Blind light without ethical direction reveals the emptiness of neutrality. He will symbolize complicity, the violence of those who refuse to choose. Mihawk will represent the collapse of meritocracy without purpose. His pursuit of strength will appear hollow in a world seeking emotional reconstruction. His duel with Zoro will not determine supremacy, but philosophy. Zoro's victory will symbolize that strength bound to purpose surpasses solitude bound to pride. When Zoro surpasses Mihawk, swords cease to be instruments of ego. They become instruments of meaning. Boa Hancock's role will shift dramatically. Her beauty, once tool and curse, will evolve into symbol of autonomy. She will reject objectification and prove that admiration without equality is worship, not love. Her arc will dismantle coercive obsession nationwide. Nations enslaving beauty will dismantle their idols. Kuma's story will reach its heartbreaking crescendo. His sacrifice was not servitude. It was protection of narrative continuity. He preserved Bonnie's future at the expense of his identity, symbolizing parental love as cosmic force. When his memories are restored, the world will witness the emotional brutality of scientific authoritarianism. Kuma will become testament to the idea that love, when mechanized, becomes tragedy. Bonnie's tears will ignite generational empathy. Her fruit, capable of aging and de-aging, symbolizes temporal grief. She embodies the pain carried through time. Her forgiveness will heal the concept of punishment. Time will stop being weapon and become lesson. Vegapunk's final invention will not be a machine, but an idea, democratized knowledge. He will reveal that the greatest technology is education. His message will integrate devil fruits with scientific theory, proving that emotion and logic are not adversaries, but partners. When Vegapunk dies, his death will confirm that enlightenment demands sacrifice, but his ideas will persist because knowledge distributed is knowledge immortal. In the final stages, Elbaf will rise. Their culture, rooted in honor, strength, and myth, will challenge humanity's inferiority complex. Giants embody collective memory. They remember what the world forgot. Their libraries, oral and monumental, hold keys to cosmology. Usopp's heroism in Elbaf will create the myth of the storyteller who became truth. His lies, once protective delusion, will become inspiration. When children believe in impossible stories, civilization heals. The final war will not conclude with a crown upon Luffy's head. The Pirate King title is not authority, it is autonomy. It means the one who achieved the greatest freedom. Luffy will refuse political power because government contradicts his ideology. He will embody leadership by walking away from thrones. The destruction of the Red Line will merge oceans, creating a single, navigable world. Fishman Island will ascend, becoming symbol of equality. The ocean, once barrier, becomes bridge. Cultural isolation dissolves. Prejudice recedes. Racism erodes through proximity. When difference becomes neighbor, fear evaporates. In the end, the world will not resemble utopia, it will resemble possibility. The scars of oppression will remain as memory, but memory becomes wisdom. A generation born after dawn will not understand fear of ancient shadows. Their struggles will be different, but better. The last pages of One Piece will show ordinary life, children sailing safely, schools teaching true history, musicians drumming without fear, the sea shimmering softly, embracing devil fruit users instead of drowning them, the sun reflecting brightly on waves that once carried centuries of trauma. There will be no throne, only horizon. The message is clear. When humanity laughs together, dawn is inevitable. The last conflict will not end in destruction, but in revelation. When the dust settles, humanity will face its reflection and realize that the true treasure was never material. It was comprehension. The era of conquest will dissolve into the era of curiosity. What Roger began as adventure will conclude as understanding. What Joyboy promised as liberation will culminate as memory restored. As the oceans merge and the sun rises, the world will finally perceive its own design. The continents, once separated by ideology, will realign physically. The red line, crumbled, will reveal a path of coral and light, a scar-turned bridge. Fishman Island, ascending to the surface, will illuminate the ocean floor with bioluminescent beauty. It will become a monument to reconciliation between sky and sea. The once oppressed will now guide those who oppress them. The ultimate inversion of hierarchy is compassion. The sky itself will change. Weather patterns will stabilize. The Grand Line's madness will subside, not through control, but through harmony. The calm belt will transform into a living memorial of peace. Its sea kings no longer guardians of isolation, but shepherds of migration. Humanity will finally learn that the sea was never hostile. It was waiting for maturity. The surviving admirals and leaders will form a new council, not of power, but of accountability. Justice will evolve from punishment into restoration. The Navy, stripped of propaganda, will become a peacekeeping fleet for education, disaster relief, and inter-island coordination. Marines once raised to obey will learn to listen. The phrase absolute justice will be archived, a fossil of arrogance. The revolutionaries will disband not in defeat, but in fulfillment. Their mission will be complete when hierarchy dissolves naturally. Dragon's last act will be to burn the revolutionary flag, symbolizing that rebellion is only necessary when oppression exists. His disappearance will mirror Roger's, an ending by transcendence, not death. Scholars will rebuild O'Hara's dream. The tree of knowledge will rise again, its roots intertwined with Robin's legacy. Poneglyphs will be translated publicly, taught in schools as reminders of what ignorance costs. Children will grow up learning history not as burden, but as inheritance. The word forbidden will vanish from language. The Straw Hat crew will disperse, not as separation, but as expansion. Each member will carry the dawn into a different domain. Zoro will found a dojo on an island once conquered by tyranny, teaching strength without domination. Nami will chart a complete map of the unified world, naming regions after lost friends. Usopp will become the first historian of myth reborn, documenting truth in the language of legends. Sanji will open a floating restaurant chain where species and classes dine as equals, proving that hunger unites what politics divides. Chopper will found a hospital where both humans and beasts are treated without prejudice. Robin will direct the restoration of the world's archives. Frankie will build bridges, not ships, bridges connecting continents. Brooke will travel the world performing music that synchronizes heartbeats. Jinbei will lead the first diplomatic fleet, ensuring the seas remain safe for generations. And Luffy, he will vanish into legend. He will not rule. He will not remain. He will sail beyond mapped seas, laughing into the unknown. He will leave behind not a kingdom, but a template for freedom. People will tell stories of the man who could stretch the world's heart until it remembered how to beat. His straw hat will rest upon a monument shaped like a sunrise, inscribed with one phrase, "Inherited will never dies." In time, new generations will emerge. Children will eat devil fruits without fear. Some will awaken instantly, others slowly, but none will drown. The ocean will embrace them, teaching that power and nature are not enemies. Science and mythology will merge again, forming a discipline known simply as symbiosis. It will study the emotional mechanics of creation, the physics of laughter, and the ethics of imagination. What was once superstition will become science once more. Decades later, historians will look back and see that the great pirate era was not an age of chaos. It was therapy. The world had to break itself to heal itself. Pirates were not criminals. They were antibodies. Each ship, each flag, each song of rebellion was the immune system of civilization, restoring moral equilibrium. In this healed world, the term pirate will fade. People will call themselves voyagers, explorers of meaning. Treasure hunts will continue, but the treasure sought will be stories, cultures, connections. The sea will no longer separate, but circulate. The one piece once thought to be gold or weapon will be revealed as philosophy, the understanding that all things are connected. The void that once consumed centuries will be filled by laughter. The final panel of this story, when imagined as art, will show an endless horizon. The sun hangs halfway above the sea, neither rising nor setting. It signifies that dawn is not a moment, it is maintenance. Freedom is not achievement, it is discipline. The world will continue to turn, its people laughing, its oceans singing. Joyboy's promise will no longer belong to myth. It will belong to everyone. And above it all, in the sky once divided by clouds, a new constellation will appear. Stars aligned in the shape of a straw hat. That is how history will remember the boy who liberated the world. Not as a conqueror, but as a reminder that laughter is divinity expressed through humanity. When the world of One Piece reaches its final chapter, scholars, artists, and philosophers alike will face a daunting realization. The story was never about pirates, nor about treasure, nor even about liberation. It was about memory, possibility, and the restoration of emotional literacy. The greatest tragedy of civilization is forgetting what it means to feel honestly. The greatest triumph is remembering. One Piece's legacy will be defined by its refusal to centralize meaning in a single character. Instead, it distributes meaning across every life connected by the sea. Luffy's freedom cannot exist without Zoro's resilience, without Nami's guidance, without Robin's preservation. Freedom is collective. Autonomy is relational. A single liberated soul in a world of chains is not free but lonely. One Piece argues that liberation is only authentic when shared. The philosophy underlying the series rests upon the concept of inherited will. This is not destiny, but resonance across generations. People do not reincarnate, ideas do. Dreams travel through lineage, not bloodline. A child inspired by a smile inherits more than wealth. They inherit direction. In this sense, will is not biological but viral. It spreads through laughter, courage, and kindness. Tyranny fears this because ideas cannot be imprisoned. Justice evolves across the narrative. At first, it is rigid and punitive, tied to authority rather than morality. Over time, the story dismantles the notion that law creates justice. Justice is not a structure, it is a conversation. The Marines who cling to absolute justice become tragic figures, loyal to doctrine, blind to consequence. Those who question, hesitate, and listen will shape the new era. They demonstrate that morality matures only when doubt is permitted. Hockey represents spiritual literacy, the ability to perceive truth beyond illusion. It is empathy sharpened into instinct, ambition condensed into force. It proves that potential is not granted externally, but awakened internally. Devil fruits, by contrast, represent imagination manifested. Together they form a duality, truth and creativity. When balanced, they create harmony. When separated, they create monsters. This duality reflects humanity itself. The Void Century symbolizes cultural amnesia. Its deletion from history is the ultimate metaphor for trauma. A world that forgets its origin forgets its potential. Robin's existence proves that remembrance is rebellion. Her ability to bloom limbs across space symbolizes intellectual extension, to reach into the past and grasp meaning. When she smiles at truth, she resolves the pain of generations. Joyboy embodies the philosophy of joyful resistance. His laughter is not ignorance but defiance. In a world that weaponizes sorrow, laughter becomes radical. Luffy inherits this role not through prophecy, but through temperament. He refuses despair. His elasticity is metaphoric, the capacity to stretch one's heart without breaking. Gold turns to rust. Rubber never does. The ancient kingdom represents the lost possibility of collaborative civilization. It did not fall because it was weak. It fell because it was kind in an age of fear. Its defeat shows that the world must grow before it can sustain kindness. The Great Pirate Era is the incubation period necessary to cultivate emotional maturity on a global scale. The red line divides seas in the same way trauma divides minds. Its fall symbolizes reintegration. When continents reconnect, cultures remember each other. Racism dissolves through proximity. The ocean becomes circulatory, not isolationist. The world stops bleeding division and begins pumping unity. Zunesha's march embodies penance. It walks because the world was not ready to forgive. When its punishment ends, the world forgives itself. Forgiveness becomes the final act of maturation. Punishment sustains trauma. Forgiveness dissolves it. The end of piracy becomes the end of rebellion. Once the world heals, pirates become explorers again. The sea transforms from battlefield to classroom. The ultimate treasure is not gold. It is the framework required to maintain freedom without repeating tyranny. When the final Poneglyph is read, humanity will realize that the Void Century was erased not to conceal sin, but to prevent imitation. The world needed to forget until it could remember without violence. Joyboy's promise was not broken. It was postponed until civilization learned empathy. The One Piece, whatever its nature, will not be valuable alone. It will require cooperation, laughter, interpretation. It will be treasure only when shared. It will complete itself only in the hands of those who do not hoard. Luffy becoming Pirate King will not create hierarchy. It will destroy the concept. His crowning achievement is refusal. Power handed to someone unwilling to wield it dissolves authoritarianism. When he leaves the throne empty, the world will understand. A chair does not create kingliness. A king creates emptiness in the chair. As generations pass, songs will preserve memory better than monuments. Brooks' violin will become scripture. Music will be the vehicle of history. Sound is harder to censor than stone. Drums, once used to synchronize emotion, will beat again across festivals, stabilizing climate through joy. Children will grow hearing stories of a crew who laughed into storms, who treated wounds with affection, who mapped the world truthfully, who danced with skeletons, who built ships with flame engines, who bloomed knowledge, who cooked dignity, who lied dreams into reality, who fought not to dominate, but to free. These children will inherit confidence instead of fear. Academics will later conclude that One Piece's world was never broken, it was paused. The final dawn is not sunrise over horizon, but sunrise over consciousness. The true function of the story is cerebral expansion. The treasure teaches cognitive empathy at planetary scale. In the end, One Piece asserts a truth modern culture often forgets. Freedom is not the absence of restraint, it is the presence of meaning. Wealth is not possession, it is connection. Power is not control, it is direction. History is not memory, it is responsibility. The boy who wore a straw hat will be remembered not because he conquered the world, but because he convinced the world it no longer needed conquering. If there is one message within the treasure chest, it is this: the world laughs together or not at all. And somewhere beyond the horizon, where maps fade and possibility begins, a ship with a smiling flag will continue to sail, reminding every generation that dawn is an ongoing negotiation between what we fear and what we choose to love. That is the legacy. That is the philosophy. That is the treasure.